Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malon. I'm speaking really fast, but I'm going to keep going. I'm with my host.
Slow down.
I was going to call you in.
Go ahead.
I'm with Marc Souza.
The Marc Souza. Ask about me. Anyways, go ahead, Jeff.
So, the stupid Marc Souza is here with me.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm going to go there. You gave me a leeway.
Okay.
Anyways.
I'll get you back.
Anyways, we're back. And going over this, we have a lot to discuss, such as the Monday Night Football matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Football Giants. We also are going to talk our own power rankings, our weekly power rankings for the NFL, our top 5 and bottom 5, as well as the Amari Cooper trade of the Cowboys, and Patrick Peterson also asking for a trade. So there's a lot to go on in this week in sports. But we'll start with Monday Night Football. The Falcons won against the New York Giants at a score of 23-20. But the real story is how they had so many yards passing, but yet only two passing touchdowns in total. There were 728 combined passing yards in this game, and yet only 2 touchdowns to show for it. Julio Jones still without a touchdown after this week 7. He did have over 100 yards receiving, but yet no touchdowns still.
I bet they don't even throw him touchdown passes in practice at this point. They're like, we don't do this in the game. Why would we try it out on the practice field?
They at least attempt to throw it to him in the end zone. It's not like
sometimes.
At least they're not like ignoring him completely.
He still doesn't get nearly enough red zone targets, but
because he's getting double covered every time they're in the red zone.
That's what you say, but that's not true. That's not true.
All right, well, enlighten me then.
Enlighten you?
Okay, well, how about this? I'll tell you this. Let's
just talk about the game.
Shh, I'm telling you this. When they're in the red zone, they're putting their best defender on Julio, no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is, that's leaving open receivers and open tight ends in situations where you would think you would throw it to Julio, but even if he's covered by one guy, there is going to be someone in a mismatch, and you can throw it to that guy.
So how come they're the only team that has a great wide receiver that can't get him the ball in the red zone?
Because they have pretty good wide receivers.
The Texans can find DeAndre Hopkins. The Bengals can get AJ Green.
The Falcons have better overall receivers. They have a better 2-3.
What about? I don't know about that. I don't know if the Falcons have better receivers.
And Calvin Ridley, you don't say those
are better than Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins. John Hopkins is one. I'm saying the guys behind DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, Will Fuller is better than Calvin Ridley.
You just said DeAndre Hopkins is behind DeAndre Hopkins.
No. I was saying that receiving core, Hopkins and Fuller, that's better than Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones.
What about Sanu?
Sanu's a decent player, but they're not world beaters. AJ Green, he gets the ball in the red zone.
Who else is on
Antonio Brown gets the ball in the red zone, and he has Juju.
Whatever.
I don't know why you're defending the Falcons. They can't get him the ball because they're not creative enough to get him the ball. They don't put him in enough slot formations.
Kyle Shanahan, the best offensive coordinator in the land at this point. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. But the fact of the matter is, they have a lot of more weapons than Julio Jones. Julio Jones is their best weapon, no doubt about it, no question about it.
Yeah, that's not an excuse. That's really not an excuse.
And they won the game, so I don't think he's complaining.
Plus those red zone touchdowns that you're talking about, or those touchdowns by Ridley and other players, are usually not in the red zone. They're usually big plays. Like last night, Marvin Hall scores that touchdown, 40, 50-yard touchdown pass. The Falcons, let's just be honest, they have to find better ways to get Julio Jones the football in the red zone, period. You can say that he's double teamed. He's not most of the time.
Well,
Sometimes
that was Hall's
he
only
is.
reception too, so
I
he
understand.
make most of it.
I understand, but the original argument was that the Falcons, that Julio Jones is double covered and defenses are taking him away. There's ways to get your best players open, and they cannot seem to do it. They're not a very good red zone team.
That's up to Matt Ryan, too. You got to put some fault in Matt Ryan for not throwing him the ball.
There's also a lot of times where they pull Julio Jones off the field in the red zone, which is the most maddening thing in the entire world, is why is your best receiver sitting on the sideline when you're at the 10-yard line? That happens way too frequently for the Atlanta Falcons. Way too frequently.
Well, they're not, to be honest, they're not really in the red zone that often. They're usually, like you said, throwing big touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, Julio Jones has gone 7 weeks without a touchdown.
And last year, how many did he have? Like 3? Like, he's just not been scoring touchdowns in the last 2 years.
He's their best player.
He's phenomenal. He's awesome. So, other players played last night.
Really?
Like,
who else?
Saquon. How did Saquon and Odell Beckham do for the Giants?
Barkley had a pretty rough game, to be
He did. He was surprisingly...
want me to read the stats?
Yeah,
first?
go ahead.
14 attempts for 43 yards rushing, but yet 94 total yards, including passing, with only a touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. had 8 receptions, 143 yards, and 1 touchdown. But the man of the hour in that for the Giants was Sterling Shepard. 5 receptions, 167 yards. No touchdowns, granted, but 167 yards is great nonetheless.
See, the Giants, and I don't want to... This will be the last thing I say about that. The Giants, who are a dysfunctional offensive team, can find Odell Beckham in the end zone. But the Falcons, who are
if they don't,
much better offense.
If they don't, he'll complain on the sideline.
It don't matter. Julio complains sometimes too. They all do. They all want the ball. They all know that they can score.
Julio's not as animated as and Odell Beckham or Antonio
For the most
Brown.
part, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Find the best way to get your guys a ball, period. Saquon, though, he definitely had a subdued game. I think most people thought that Saquon, like myself, was going to tear up the Falcons because the Falcons are horrible at stopping running backs in the pass game. They have allowed to date the most passing yards to a running back to the running back position in the NFL. They give up a lot of passes short to those running backs, but they did a really good job at stopping Saquon. They did a really good job at keeping Barkley in front of them, whether it was in the run game or the pass game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely put that into consideration. But the fact of the matter is, who's your main weapon when you're throwing the football?
For the Giants or for who?
For the Giants.
Oh, I mean, Odell starts.
Yeah,
But
Barkley's
Barkley,
not going to get those passes as
Barkley
often.
is a dynamic player, though. He should definitely be a big part.
But Sterling Shepard also had a great game. With those 5 receptions alone, he had 167 yards.
Yeah, he had a big game.
You got to give the guy with the hot hand, and Barkley was struggling.
I mean, he had 9 for 51. That's pretty good.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is the fact is who was doing better when they had the football, and that was Sterling Shepard and a little bit of
Shepard hit a couple big plays, 2 plays. I think we had over 35 yards on both of them. That was the bulk of his yardage there, but he definitely made the most of his opportunities as he had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 167 yards. Odell Beckham really had a good game too, 11 targets, 8 catches, 143 yards. Saquon, 10 targets, 9 for 51. Nice game. I think we just all thought that Barkley was going to have 200 yards total offense or something like that. It seemed like it would be one of those games. But again, these two teams, I think the story is they're inconsistent. Their offenses can look really good, but then not score when they get down to it. The Giants, again, I think they've had one game over 30 points in the last 2 years. So they're a team that's actually very below average in terms of offense, even though they have all these weapons. But both defenses, I think, were better last night than normal, but it probably helped because of the inconsistency on offense. Were you surprised to see this game such low scoring? It was, 7-0 at halftime?
With how much passing there was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
So what does this game mean for the Giants moving forward? They're 1-6.
Hoping for a top 5 pick again.
And draft a quarterback, probably, right?
It's time to tank. It's time to get the tank out and start firing.
Yeah, I don't think they will, though.
They should. It's the most logical route. So they're 1-6, correct? The best they can do is 10-6, and
they're done.
In the NFC, that's a tall glass. What the heck?
It's a tall order.
Thank you.
You always want to say a tall glass of water, but you're saying two different things.
I know, that's a tall order.
A tall order.
And the fact of the matter is, in a very competitive NFC, that 10-6 doesn't get you playoffs. Sometimes 11-5. Sometimes 11-5 doesn't get you playoffs.
10-6 might get you playoffs in the NFC, but the fact is that if they were, let's say, the Packers or even the Falcons, maybe we could see them crawling their way back because they have a lot of talent, great quarterback play. But the Giants don't have that. They don't have a defense. They don't have a good quarterback. Their defense is not terrible, but their defense is not good enough to hold that inconsistent and poor offense. So, with that being said, they're done. Jeff, they're done. They're 1-6. It's over for them. What about the Falcons? The Falcons, they get a win.
They have a slim.
They needed that win, but they got the win. They now play. Let me tell you their schedule coming up. You ready?
Okay, and I'll say win or loss throughout.
They're 3-4 currently. Okay, so keep that in mind. I don't know if you want to write that down, but they're 3-4. Their next game is so the Falcons go on a bye. They don't play this week.
Lose. Do you see those jokes about the Raiders? They lose in their bye week.
Yeah. Anyways.
I think those are hilarious because the score is 31-17. The Raiders lose. So I'm like, huh?
Falcons play the Redskins next game, and that game is away in Washington.
That game, okay. I'm going to give the win to Washington because they're on a hot streak right now.
Then they play at Cleveland.
They're going to beat Cleveland. I'm sorry, Cleveland, but I've said you're going to win the last couple.
Then they host the Cowboys.
I'm going to give the win to the Falcons.
So at that point, you'd have them at 5-5. But then this is where it gets interesting. You ready? Buckle up. Put on your seatbelt.
Click.
At Saints.
Give me Saints.
Give you Saints?
Yes.
Home to the Ravens.
Give me Falcons.
At Green Bay.
Give me Falcons.
Wow.
What, Green Bay?
So you have them, at that point, you'd have them at 7-6, I believe.
Well, Green Bay gave up 30 points to the 49ers, so I'm assuming they're...
Actually, you'd have them at 8-6, I believe. And then the last two would be the Panthers.
Lose.
And at Tampa Bay.
Win.
So you have them at 9 wins and 7 losses, it looks like.
I don't see a playoff, though.
It's interesting. But they needed that one. Can we agree on that? If they lost, absolutely. It was over for them. Would you say that?
They definitely needed.
They would have been 2-5. So
They would have been. Honestly, they probably would have been dead in the water.
Can we talk about the fallout of the criticism of Pat Shurmur going for 2 down 14 in the fourth?
You want to do a rant? Would you like to rant?
I mean, it is the right move. Although people are probably shaking their head right now because that's not how it always has been. I'm not going to get into the boring stuff, into the math, which is actually the data, and will prove the theory that you should go for 2. But there is plenty of information out there to read. In charts, I like visual aids, so charts are good. Are you a visual guy, Jeff?
I am.
I'm a visual learner.
I am not. I managed to graduate college by the skin of my teeth, so I'm not very.
I'm a visual guy.
I'm not very much of a learner.
I love charts and graphs. You know. So, anyways, he's getting a lot of...
Are you going to show me like a chart and graph right now? Like, what's going on?
I will show you at the break, but we're not going to bore the people. He made the right move, going for 2 down 14. I know it sounds weird, but you want to put yourself in a position to win that game in regulation.
Statistically, like if they get it, you're only down by 6, and if you score that touchdown, you kick a field goal, you win the game.
Believe it or not, you actually minimize your risk of losing the game by going for 2 to cut it to 6 points instead of 7. I know a lot of people are probably rolling their head. I don't know, the millions of people listening out there.
Millions and millions of the Rocks fans.
I'm telling you, Pat Shurmur made the right move. The data shows it. The analytics are correct. because it didn't work doesn't mean that it's not the right move. Can we agree on that in sports in general or just in life? Sometimes you don't execute, but the idea was correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Like a hit and run situation. Sometimes you hit the ball into a line drive and it's caught and it's a double play.
But it could also could have went positive. Like if you go go after something you thought you wanted, and it turns out you don't want it, it's okay. At least you tried.
Like a girl or
like a dream job or something. Like I want to work in
Yeah,
marketing, and I don't like marketing now. After like 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna find something I do like.
Yeah.
But at least, but you tried it. You took the chance. Like that's a smart decision.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times, that's a interesting way to put it. But I mean, like even in a strategy, whether it's sports or anything else, a lot of times your idea was correct, but your execution was wrong. So, anyways, that's my little tidbit on that. I think Pat Shurmur was awesome in addressing it right away with the media. He said, "I know what you're going to ask me, and here's my reasoning," which I thought was great.
Hold up, people! I know what you're going to ask, so don't ask the stupid questions.
I'm going to say this right now. I think what I learned last night from the New York Giants. Are you with me, Jeff?
I'm with you.
I think what I learned from the New York Giants is that they need, obviously, to change their quarterback. They need to find a new quarterback, most likely via draft. But I actually think they have
from Oregon is what you're thinking?
I think they actually have a right mindset for their head coach. I think they can go from this season knowing that they might have the right guy to be their head coach. I like his way of thinking. I like the way he deals with things. He doesn't seem to be resting on his laurels. He is an old school coach, but he understands numbers and things like that. And he admits that, he did seek advice for this. He has sought information regarding going for 2 and things like that. So that's awesome that he's an open-minded guy.
I like coaches that take a chance, though.
Yeah.
And like, who would punt on 4th and 1 in overtime?
Hugh Jackson.
Or Jason Garrett?
Hugh Jackson would for sure. So
Hugh Jackson is the most conservative coach in all of football.
To a fault. That's the problem with a lot of these.
That's being nice.
That's the problem with a lot of these NFL coaches is they're all too conservative, and when the one coach does something that seems like a little bit of a gamble,
they're like proven right.
Yeah, like
it's not fair.
Remember last year when the Steelers were going for 2 like on every other touchdown they scored? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And people are like, that's so weird. That's dumb.
Because they're not used to it.
But you have a 50% chance of converting your for 2 when you go for 2. You have a 50% chance of getting it right. And when you have that kind of offense and that kind of players, your average actually goes up. So it's smart. It's smart. So that's my rant. We need to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Amari Cooper trade, the fallout, who won the trade, did the Cowboys pay too much? We'll analyze this and much more when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We just finished talking about the Monday Night Football matchup between the Falcons and the Giants. We also talked a little bit about coaches being conservative. Hugh Jackson, we're looking at you, man. And now we are talking about a trade that happened yesterday. Amari Cooper, Raider first-round pick a couple of years ago, has been officially traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a first-round draft pick next year. What are your thoughts? I'll let you go first on this.
My initial thoughts were, wow. I didn't think the Raiders were going to be able to get a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. But as they say in sports, Jeff, it only takes one. It only takes one team to value someone that highly. So the Raiders, they get a first-round pick, which now gives them 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. But they lose a young, talented receiver who's been inconsistent with his production. I understand why some Raider fans would be okay with this trade. I understand that maybe Amari Cooper hasn't been the player that they drafted, hasn't lived up to that expectation, I should say. But for the Cowboys, I also think they paid too much for Amari Cooper. I think a second-round pick would have been good here, maybe a second and another pick, like a 5th or a 6th-round pick. But Jerry Jones, I'm not surprised that he made a splash move. But yeah, I think there's a possibility here that both teams actually lost this trade. And I say that because even though Amari Cooper has been inconsistent, I'm not so sure that he's a bad wide receiver. I would probably attribute his inconsistencies more to his quarterback play and his offensive coaching in the last 2 years more than him. I understand he drops the ball every once in a while. His hands are a question mark, but the guy is very talented. He's a very fluid athlete. So I don't know. I don't know for him if it's his quarterback play, if it's the offense, if it's his mentality. But he has the physical tools to be that number one receiver. We see games from him where he has standout performances, and then we'll see games where he completely disappears. So that's my thoughts, Jeff, that the Cowboys may have overpaid, and the Raiders, I don't know if it's a great move. I mean, they got a first-round pick, so that's good. But you're still having to replace now. You got 3 first-round picks for a generational talent in Khalil Mack and a very skilled wide receiver, but now you have to replace those positions. So did you really improve your team with those draft picks is my question. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a big... Well, you get 3 draft picks in this next draft. That's a huge... And 3 draft picks in any year is huge. So
we were talking, 2 years ago that Carr, Mack, and Cooper were maybe the best young core in the NFL. Some people are saying that.
Gone. Oh, well, Carr's next. Carr's out of there.
But my whole thing is, what if Carr was the one that should have gone and the other 2 should have stayed? Like, that's a real legitimate argument to make.
Well, Carr's going to be gone regardless.
And would you rather have 3 first-round picks or Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper?
Keep Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. Keep Mack, trade Cooper, and Carr.
I also want to mention one more thing.
Yeah.
When John Gruden was a head coach in this league, when he was with the Raiders, he was not in charge of player personnel as Al Davis still was. When he moved to Tampa Bay, he became the general manager and the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. He made personnel decisions. Mm-hmm. He ran 6 drafts for the Bucs, I believe, if I remember correctly, and didn't hit on any draft picks. Had a terrible draft record. His record as a Bucs coach went from Super Bowl win to poor. He missed the playoffs every single year but 2. I don't know if he's the right guy to be picking these players with all these draft picks because his history shows he's probably not.
Well, granted, you are right about this. He didn't hit any home runs in Tampa Bay. But do you think all the years he spent out of the coaching circle, do you think that's helped him know where a good player is? And maybe he's smart enough to know, I can't do this on my own. I need other advice. I need better people to help me out here.
Maybe. You would, as if you're a Raiders fan, you surely hope so, because you know as well as I do, the Raiders paid him $100 million, which means he's the king of the castle. Mm-hmm. Reggie McKenzie, the general manager right now, I don't even know if he's going to be the general manager here in a few months, because if the Raiders fire somebody next, who do you think it's going to be? Reggie McKenzie, right? The general manager who was there before Gruden. So I don't know, man.
It's a difficult situation. Like, if you're part of the Raiders organization, like, are you thinking, is this the guy? Is he destroying us for the future, or is he trying to make a point in, like, power?
So I know that John Gruden is a positive guy in terms of, when he worked for ESPN. You following with me here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Follow with me.
Following.
So he worked for ESPN. We all know that on Monday Night Football, he would go overboard with his love of players, right?
Yeah. Well.
Okay. Yeah. These are some concerning things that he has said about some players in the draft. He doesn't say everybody's a good player, but John Gruden was very adamant that the Raiders should have drafted Johnny Manziel over Derek Carr. John Gruden also said that Connor Cook would be the best quarterback in his draft. He also said that Paxton Lynch is the next Cam Newton. He said that Jake Locker is a young Rich Gannon. He said that
for those who don't know, Rich Gannon was an MVP in 2002.
He said that Oklahoma wide receiver Ryan Broyles, who was Detroit's second-round pick in 2012, was the next Tim Brown. He really thought that Brandon Whedon was a great pick. There's a lot of bad takes, and I know it's unfair. Is
there some good ones in there?
I know it's unfair. I was cherry picking, but I know it's unfair to talk about that because he was an analyst. He's supposed to say positive things, but I mean, you look at his drafts, I'm not so sure that he's the right guy. And you want to know something else?
Sure.
Colton Miller, he was their first pick in this year's draft. Do you remember the UCLA tackle from Sacramento?
Yes.
Okay. He is the worst ranked offensive tackle in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus. So that was the first draft for John Gruden as a Raiders decision maker, and it looks like he swung and missed with his first round pick. Does that get? I know it's early. We're talking about a guy who's played in 7 career NFL football games, so we can't just throw it, or 6 football games. We can't just say that Colton Miller will never be a good player, but that's not a good opening act by the rookie. I'm just not so sure these picks are good.
Well, look at the teams he's faced also. They're not easy to block. And, of course...
Really?
I'm just saying that you can't blame him for how bad the team is.
I'm not blaming one player. I'm just saying my point was that
you think this is a bust pick already?
No. I mean,
I know you said.
I'm saying it's very questionable. It's very questionable, but based on his draft history is what I'm saying. My overall point is that John Gruden might not be the best talent evaluator. He might be a really good coach with X's and O's and game planning, but it takes somebody different to be a guy who can manage personnel and be an X's and O's guy. We saw Chip Kelly absolutely fail at player personnel decisions. We've seen Bill Belichick absolutely flourish with player personnel decisions and running the team from the field. That's where I'm getting at with this.
So, you're comparing them to Bill Belichick. That's unfair.
No. I did not say that. I did not say that. I said that some coaches are very good at the personnel side of things, and some are terrible at it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying it's not the same job.
You can't bring up John Gruden and Bill Belichick in the same sentence when it comes to personnel. Like I know you were saying like Bill Belichick's the more better, but that's like saying like Michael Jordan's better than.
I wasn't comparing the two. That's not what I said, Jeff.
It sounded like that's what you were saying.
I was using Bill Belichick as an example of a coach who has succeeded on the field and as a general manager.
He's the only one. Well, for in the league right now,
some of them can do it. It's not for everybody, but the problem is that the Raiders put all their eggs in one basket with Gruden. $100 million is saying you're going to make all the decisions for this football team.
Which they shouldn't have done in the first place. People are still controversial about that.
So they've acquired these picks.
Maybe you should have signed him just a head coach and signed someone else as the general manager.
I agree.
You can still give him the
They put themselves in a position.
Give him the 10-year, $100 million a year contract, like a $100 million contract. I don't care, but you don't have to make him the general manager.
Well, that's the problem is that you kind of do when you give him $100 million because what are you going to pay a GM like $4 million a year? And then the coach is going to say, you owe me $100 million. I'm going to tell you what to do because I'm the king of this castle. That's literally what they said when they gave him $100 million. It's not the money. It's the
Mark
power.
Mark Davis is an idiot.
It's not the money. It's the power that comes with it.
And, we've talked about this before. This is also to sell tickets in Vegas.
But they're not helping themselves sell tickets in Vegas right now.
John Gruden is a draw regardless because of his...
I know. But you kind of want the team to be on the right track, you know?
Well, yeah, of course, but right now they're not.
And even
if
they
they're
do
honest,
well,
they're looking at like 4 or 5 years down the line. They're not looking at the next season or anything about that. They're looking at way ahead in the future, more ahead than any other team in the league right now.
And here's the thing, too, is that it sounds like Derek Carr is on the market. If they're trying to trade Derek Carr, they're probably not getting anything of value in return because somebody's going to have to pay Derek Carr $100 million, the remaining part of that contract. So I don't know, man. It sounds like, I mean, they're obviously rebuilding, but if you're a Raider fan, I don't know if you're so positive about this because Cooper and Mac are really good players. Obviously, Mac is one of the top 5 defensive players in the
if
NFL. If
Carr does get traded, you know who their backup is?
It was EJ Manuel, but it's not him anymore.
It's AJ McCarron.
AJ McCarron, they traded for him. That's right.
That's the guy that's going to start for them once he's gone.
Yeah, I just don't see Derek Carr getting traded because the money.
Oh, he's getting traded.
To who?
I don't know, but he's going. If they got rid of...
The problem is, Jeff, is that the next team that picks him up owes him $100 million. What team is running out there saying we want to pay a mediocre quarterback $100 million?
There
what
are
team?
some stupid teams.
But if you're a team, wouldn't you just draft a quarterback instead of taking on a $100 million quarterback who you don't even know is good?
We've seen some stupid things in the past.
Give me 2 teams right now, or even one, that could possibly consider trading for Derek Carr.
The Giants.
Okay. So the Giants trade for Derek Carr instead of taking the best quarterback in the draft. That's what you're saying?
Best quarterback in the draft. This isn't a big draft class.
It doesn't
for
matter.
quarterbacks.
He's a good quarterback.
So is Carr. Like, Carr's got the experience. Like, I'm just saying a team that's desperate for a quarterback, which is right now the Giants, would risk all that.
But you're saying that the Giants would pay $100 million and trade for him, so they'd probably give up something like a first-round pick or a second-round pick to take on a quarterback that we don't know is good? We don't know
he's good in the draft either.
Right, but he's a rookie.
Okay.
But he's a rookie. He doesn't make $100 million. You're not investing more than a rookie contract.
Well, we've seen Carr take a team to the playoffs before, but he broke his back.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
I know. Is he good? Today, is he good?
We don't know because he has no team around him. He has literally nothing around him.
That's a joke. That's an absolute joke of a comment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's got a very good offensive line. Amari Cooper is a good wide receiver.
Wide receivers, no.
Jordy Nelson's a decent wide receiver.
Jordy Nelson's at the end of his career.
Martavis Bryant's a decent wide receiver.
He sucks. Have you seen him play? He dropped like a wide open passer in the end zone.
Jared Cook is a good tight end.
Jared Cook can't get open. He's slow.
The Raiders have...
When your best offensive player cannot get open and cannot catch the ball when 3 guys are on him because he's the only offensive weapon they have.
That's not true.
Amari Cooper can't catch a damn ball.
This is absolutely not true.
Well, we said we just talked about how Amari Cooper's hands are questionable.
Right.
And you're denying it.
Yes, because he drops 1 out of 12 passes. No. What about the other 30 passes that Derek Carr throws in a game?
Because, like I'm saying, Martavis Bryant, it can't do. He's smoking weed half the time, so he doesn't know where the ball is. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll talk more about other trades that have happened, such as the Amari Cooper trade. We talked about that, but now Patrick Peterson's also looking for a trade. We'll talk more about that when we return.
All right.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
we're back to the GSMC Football Podcast. I have calmed down. I have done my meditation. We are good now. I've apologized to Mark, and we're good now. We moved on. So now we're going to our power rankings at the moment. Do you want to start bottom or top?
Bottom's always better.
That's what she said. and moving on. Who's your number 5?
The least worst team? 49ers.
Okay.
I mean, they're 1-6. Their games are mostly competitive. This game against the Rams, they got blown out, but it's the Rams. I don't really put a lot of stock into that, so they kind of just hold water for me. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know about the injuries, so this current variation of the Niners is definitely bottom 5 worthy.
Yeah. My number 5 is the Giants. They played really competitive this game. Barkley is still one of the top running backs in the league. This team has talent. It just they don't know how to get the wins in.
Yeah.
It's a lot like the 49ers, but without injuries.
Yeah, it's... I mean,
and my number 4 is actually the 49ers for everything you just said. Yeah. But they have just been struggling on the defense. They have a healthy defensive side is the problem. That defense is lacking in so many different ways, especially the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that had some improvement in terms of personnel, but still lacking other departments. But when you don't have your quarterback, I mean, you're going to probably be a bottom 5 team.
And you're starting a running back.
I think it's just safe to say that unless you're like the Eagles last year or another team that has a great team in every position, you're going to be a bottom 5 team without your starting quarterback. We saw with the Packers last year when Aaron Rodgers went down. It's they're a completely different team. So, my number 29. So my number 2 of the bottom 5 is the Buffalo Bills.
Number 4
is the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
So, I don't really know what to say about them. I mean, they're a decent
they don't have
defensive
a quarterback
team,
to save
but their offense
the
is horrible. I don't know how they've won 2 games, but they have.
Josh Allen kind of saved them one of those big games.
We'll see what they do the rest of the season, but I don't see them winning more than 1 game, maybe.
Who's your number 3? We'll just go to you again.
Giants.
Okay.
So I have the Giants at number 30, yeah. So the New York Giants, I mean, you said a lot of the same things, or a lot of the same things I was going to say. Eli's their quarterback. Their offensive line is terrible. I can't believe Nate Solder is that bad for being that big of a free agent acquisition. But they have talented players, so they definitely can't be my worst team because they have Saquon Barkley, because they have Odell, which is weird because that might be the best running back wide receiver tandem in the NFL. It's close. Like if you take
if Le'Veon was playing, that it could have been
right. It's close though. Like it's close, and we're talking about them being one of the worst teams in football.
Also, we will talk about later how Le'Veon is not going to check in for this week, which is almost like at a hilarious point now. It's almost a comedy.
Yeah. So Giants are my number 30. Who's your number 30?
They're the Bills. Seeing how terrible Derek Anderson has played, and Nathan Peterman is joking himself. As bad as he's playing, there is no direction for this team. If your quarterbacks are playing this badly, if you have 2 quarterbacks are playing this badly, and your first draft choice is hurt, you are going nowhere fast. You go into the bottom of the cellar.
Yep.
That's all you need to say about them and Calvin Benjamin's been struggling too. Well, obviously his quarterback's
I think we might have the same bottom 2.
Okay. Who's your
31?
I'm saying the Cardinals. Who are you saying?
Yes, the Cardinals.
How they play, nothing against Josh Rosen, but he went to the worst team possible.
We'll see if their offense coordinator change will change anything with that team because they need it.
Yeah, that
the offense was just putrid, but now they have Byron Leftwich taking over. Let's see if that'll give him a spark.
The old quarterback from the Jags years and years ago, so it's weird to see him. And
this is the first time that he's been an offense coordinator.
This is his chance to shine. Let's hope he does something. And Josh Rosen, he's on a terrible team right now, so you can't really blame him for any of this.
Yeah, hopefully they can get a little bit.
And Patrick Peterson wants out, and he's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And now he all of a sudden wants out. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign that this team's going nowhere.
We'll see if they can turn this around with the new offense coordinator. So we both have... Who do you have as worst?
The Rams. No, I'm kidding. The Chiefs. Oh, no, what am I saying? The Raiders. Sorry. the
Raiders, yes, that's who I have as well.
Their quarterback, no, I'm not going to say
they just
about that.
Got rid of their best receiver. Their quarterback,
They are tanking.
Marshawn Lynch, is on IR now. He's out for the season.
John Gruden is tanking. That's what he's
So
doing.
the next time that the Raiders take the field, their offense will look like this. Derek Carr, Jordy Nelson, Martavis Bryant, Jared Cook, Jalen Richard, and Doug Martin. Those will be their skill position players.
Doug Martin's past his prime,
They lost their best two players on offense, Lynch and Cooper.
And obviously beating a dead horse, losing Khalil Mack has solely put a factor on their defense and how bad they're playing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made some more trades here in the next week to actually acquire more picks and get rid of some vets.
Oh, it's definitely a let's collapse this year so we can focus on the years to
Yeah,
come.
it really looks like they are tanking. So, to rebuild. But that's our bottom five now. The fun begins, Jeff. Let's go with our top five. Your number five power ranked team in the NFL is
New England Patriots.
Okay. Why?
They are still a good team, great team, no question about it, but there has been some skips in the beat, if you know what I mean. Like this team has struggled, this team has had some struggles, and you just got to look at that in the factor of this isn't the same dominant Patriots team. There is some holes in this team.
Looks like they were lucky, too, to avoid that injury to Sony Michel.
He seems he's going to be back soon. So
seems minor, which is great because that offense, he added a dimension to it that they've been missing.
Yeah, exactly. And Tom Brady's still playing at a top level. Julian Edelman's playing at a top level.
Josh Gordon's
playing at a top level. Like, that offense is great, but the holes that I'm talking about are on the defensive side, and that's why they're on number 5 for me.
You know what's weird is that Gronk has been very quiet in this offense.
Well, he's kind of been covered a lot. Have you noticed, like, a lot of teams have double covered him, and he's...
Sometimes. I think that
he has been open on occasions, but...
There might be something to this, though, that he's kind of a
hurt
little
or
over the
something
hill.
like that?
Yeah,
you think over the hill? Oh, okay. Well, I
mean,
just
he's like
hurt.
29 years old, but he's suffered so many injuries in his career that you could see that he...
Well, he plays an aggressive style, so it's like that comes with the territory.
Yeah, so...
Who's your number 5?
My number 5 is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay.
So
I am agreeing
they're
with
a team that's shooting up the board right now.
Their defense is great.
They're playing very well. They were a little bit fortunate to win against the Titans, but it was a weird game in London, so I'm not going to put too much stock into that. That narrow win.
London games always come with like an asterisk.
Just if you win the game, that's it. That's all you want to do. So I got the Chargers at number 5 for my top 5 teams. Phillip Rivers, that defense. He's got a collection of wide receivers. Melvin Gordon, when he's healthy, he puts up a lot of numbers in the passing game and the running game. Just a very dynamic offense and a well-rounded football team.
Yes, absolutely. My number 4 is actually the Chargers.
Okay.
Their defense is becoming elite.
They'll get Bosa back, too.
They'll get Bosa back. That's what I was going to say when you were speaking. And with even Bosa will just add a huge depth to this team that they don't even really need when you think about it because how good they are on defense. And their offense is really picking up. Melvin Gordon, he didn't play last week, but they still won the game. He's been playing at a high level when the games he is playing. Phillip Rivers is playing like his old self. Keenan Allen's starting to get up there. Antonio Gates is still playing at a high level for his age. And the fact of the matter is this team is an AFC contender.
Absolutely.
If the Chiefs were not in the West, they could win the West.
A lot of people forgot about the Chargers because they lost their first couple games, but now they're on a roll. You got to be careful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your number 4?
New England. So we just flipped. Our 4s and 5s are just flipped.
Okay.
I just, New England, I don't think they're as dominant as they have been in the past, but they can run the ball. They can control the clock.
Isn't that like, how impressive is that? This is like one of the worst teams they've had.
What's nice is that they can just, when they play teams that, they just beat the Chiefs first off, but when they play teams that maybe have a great offense, they can control the game with their ball control passing game. Like, it's very understated how good the Patriots are at just possessing the football through the passing game. Tom Brady,
they know how to keep the ball for 20 minutes.
It's like a death by a million paper cuts with Tom Brady. You give him a 5-yard pass, he's going to make that.
That sounds awful. A million paper cuts.
That's the thing, though, is that he doesn't force it. You got White, you got Edelman, Gronk, Gordon, other players in the passing game. if they'll take 4 or 5 yards every play and just move the
this
ball down
team
the
knows
field.
how to use the time a lot. Their time of possession is usually like in the 20 minutes.
So now we hit the top 3, Jeff. This is where the fun begins.
Who's your third?
The Saints.
Mine too.
New Orleans, yeah.
Their offense is just, honestly, they're second to none. Like, well,
if their defense can get better, and you talked about teams that might make a deal at the deadline, I'd be looking out for the Saints to make a deal for the defensive side of the ball.
if they get the Patrick Peterson, like the rumors are going around, this team can be the best team in football.
It's possible. They have a very, very good offense. And, man, you could argue that they have the best offense in the NFL on any given day.
Yeah. When you have
Like
Kamara playing at a high level, and then Ingram's playing at a high level,
Michael Thomas.
and Drew Brees is playing how Drew Brees plays.
And the Saints are very much like the Patriots in terms of that they'll just kill you with all their weapons. Like, you'll see their tight ends, that you'll see guys on their team that aren't big names, but they'll come in and they do their role very well. Traquan Smith is a young receiver who took over for Ted Ginn. I would look to see him actually contribute a lot here in the next few weeks. But
Yeah, Ted Ginn is at an age where maybe he's done. Too.
yeah, so now we're in the top 2. I think I know what this order will be.
Who's
2
your
is the Chiefs.
Yes, and 3 and 1 is the Rams.
Yeah, so it's
Sometimes
been like
you
this
gotta
for a
pick
while
the
now.
obvious. Sometimes you got to pick the obvious.
It's been like this for a while now. And the Rams, they continue to win. They're still the only undefeated team.
They are just looking elite. Like no one can. It feels like no one can touch them when it comes to like combining both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive. This team is just looking like I don't even know where it came from. Like remember like 2 years ago when they first started in LA, they lost the opener to the 49ers like in a blowout, and now they are the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, the Rams are on fire.
The Chiefs are close to them, though. I'm not going to lay
The Chiefs' next 3 games are Broncos, Browns, and Cardinals. That's really attractive before they meet the Rams. That's why I bring it up, is because they actually will be playing.
It could be an undefeated team versus a one-loss team in that game. That's going to be that's the potential Super Bowl right there.
It'll be in Mexico City too, so it'll be there's another.
It's going to be loud. It's going to be loud there.
So the Rams play the Packers this weekend, and the Rams are a 9-point favorite. It's at home. It's in LA. Do you think the Packers could win this game?
No. But let me ask you this.
What about the next game? The Rams have a tough schedule. These are their next 4 opponents. You ready?
Okay, go for it.
Packers.
Okay.
Then they go to the Superdome and play the Saints.
Woo! That's a good matchup.
Then they play the Seahawks.
That game against the Saints is to prove if they're elite or not. If this is fool's gold or is this a real elite team?
Then they play the Seahawks, and I know the Seahawks aren't at their best, but it's still a division game. It should be tough. But then they play the Chiefs. That's their next 4.
That is a rough 4.
That's a tough schedule.
If they make it out of that,
if they make it out of this top 4,
undefeated,
we might crown them already.
Yeah.
You know?
But do you agree with this? The Chiefs and Rams, that's going to be
It's a good preview.
Well, it could be the Super Bowl. It's a very good chance to be in the Super Bowl.
The Rams also play the Eagles later in the season too.
Wow, they not have it easy, do they?
Yeah, I mean I feel like they've had a relatively tough schedule already. I mean, they already played the Chargers and the Vikings. So, I mean, maybe not the toughest schedule, but they've already played a couple teams that we think are, good teams. Like 2 teams that the Vikings they're not in my top 5 in the power rankings, but they're close. They're right on the edge.
That might be the toughest schedule right now.
Cool. So, anything else you'd like to add for the top 2, or because we need to take a break?
I don't see anyone overtopping these 2.
Okay, so let's go to a break. We'll come back, talk about some news and notes in the NFL, some things that have happened in the last 24 hours, possible trades that might occur here that we're about a week away from the trade deadline, and we'll do that right after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We just finished talking about our top 5 best and worst teams in the NFL. Now, we're going to move on to another topic regarding a top running back in the NFL, Le'Veon Bell, as he has still now reported for, since he said he was going to report after the bye week, which was this week, he still has now reported in and there are reports saying he's not going to be there in period.
Yeah, now it sounds like he'll be back after the trade deadline, which is next Tuesday. So looks like he will be back then. But again, it's just frustrating if you're a Steelers fan. I totally understand it, though. I get it. I don't blame Le'Veon Bell. I think that he's looking out for himself, and people can say whatever they want. But the fact is he plays a violent game where he takes a lot of punishment. And you know what? He's just trying to be compensated what he thinks is fair. And based on his ability, his stats, and when you take a look at around the NFL and see what other running backs are making, guys like Todd Gurley, it makes sense. So what do you think, Jeff? If you're a Steelers fan, are you pretty fed up with him? Are you understanding of him? What do you think?
If I'm a Steelers fan, I really don't know what to think because he's such a great player, but this is becoming beyond ridiculous. Just everyone talks about him. He's just always posting videos of him on the beach or at a club or something like that. It's getting to a point where it's like it's getting boring.
Yeah,
it's not like back in the offseason, this was like all huge news. Now, since the season has continued, it's been very like, okay, get on with this type of feeling. Like, get over yourself. Or the fact is, like, if you're a Steelers fan, you're like, pay the man or release the man or something.
Do you think that he'll get traded?
Well,
we're a week away.
Anything could happen this week. If he's still not reporting, they could right as well trade him. But again, that huge contract he has or wants to have is going to play a factor also. But I can see a team trying to go for Bell. Like, I can see them looking at considering trades at this moment because I would be fed up if I was them too, the front office of the Steelers. So why not get a first-round pick or a second-round pick out of something you know he's not going to play for you?
Mm-hmm. So, other running back news, Marshawn Lynch, he's been put on IR. He actually can return for Week 17, which I would assume that doesn't happen.
Yeah, unless they win every single game going into
it. Or what if it's his last football game? You know, like I was going to ask you, do you think that this is it for Marshawn Lynch?
That's an interesting question. He hasn't said anything about leaving yet.
Because we don't even know if the Raiders want him back next year.
This is his last year contract-wise, so this could very well be his last.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't be surprised
if it is his last year. Then maybe we will see him back Week 17. You know,
just
like as
a
a farewell.
Goodbye. Yeah, but
because the Raiders are his hometown team. Like it's something.
I wouldn't be surprised either way. I'll be like, okay, expecting a retirement or expecting, okay, I can still play type feel.
Okay, so last thing that I want to talk about for today is Patrick Peterson. We talked about it earlier briefly. You mentioned it, so I'll go into more detail. He has requested a trade from the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, as we know, are not a playoff team. They will be they'll be picking in the top 10, most likely the top 5.
Yeah, I was going to say
maybe
top
the
10
top
is being
3.
Gracious.
But, anything can happen. I'm just kind of giving them some leeway there. But in terms of Patrick Peterson, Sounds like he wants to leave. I'm not sure if he wants to go to a contender, but I would assume that he would want to go to a better team, considering he's asking to be traded, so, on a 1-6 team. But let's talk about possible trade destinations. Who do you think needs Patrick Peterson? And tell me if you think what the chances are that team would actually have some interest, like make the phone call.
Patrick Peterson's cousin has reported that Patrick Peterson wants to go to the New Orleans Saints, and they could use a great corner like Patrick Peterson. So I feel like, and looking at it, I think the Saints are the most logical team he wants to go to because they are a playoff team. They are a championship contender, as well as needing more weapons on the defensive side.
Yeah. So do you think the Saints, though, would make that phone call?
Yes, I really do.
What do you think the right compensation would be?
Well, see, Patrick Peterson's at the end of his career. Let's say third-round pick.
Third-round pick, yeah, I could see that. Anything more than that, I think...
Second round is like the most I would think to go for. Even that's a little much for me, just because of his age.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's not terribly old, though. But he did sign a $70 million contract in 2014. So he's actually owed... his number is actually pretty good. He's not owed very much money over the next 2 years. The reason I say age is usually
you trade like a first, second round pick for a guy that's going to be there for like 5 or 6 years down the road. I don't see him in the NFL in 5 or 6 years down the road, though.
So his next 2 years, if a team takes him, he would be making about $13 million and then about $13.5 million for the next 2 years each respective season, which might be a lot, but... He's a good player.
He is worth, like, as you've seen him play, he is worth the ticket price.
I think he's worth it because you're not guaranteeing him long-term money. Like, he'll be 30 when this contract is up, and then you can just walk away and have 2 good years of Patrick Peterson. So you said the Saints?
Yes.
All right. I'll throw a team at you.
Well, let me ask you one quick question. Do you see a losing team going for a trade
no.
like that?
It makes too much money.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, like, do you think a team with a losing record right now thinks, oh, maybe we can get in the playoffs if we get one more guy?
Well, here's the thing, is that it sounds like he wants to be traded, so you think he really would be okay with going to a losing team?
Does he?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not really up to him, is it?
Like, I would say, if you're talking about a losing team, you can disagree with me, but if there was a losing team that I could see interest in him, it would be the 49ers. Because he's a long cornerback.
They're not going to trade him to a division rival.
I agree with that. But I'm saying if you're looking at all the bad teams, who would be the most likely? Well, they have money. They have a huge need at opposite corner other than Richard Sherman. So
seeing Richard Sherman and Patrick Peterson on opposite sides.
Sherman has allowed 2 catches all season.
Would be deadly. It would be absolutely deadly, no question about it.
But I don't think he'd want to go to a bad team right now.
And I don't think the Cardinals want to trade him to a division rival.
So let me tell you a team that I could see him going to.
Go for it.
How about the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a need at cornerback? Their defense has been poor.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that's logical.
They're looking for a running back. I know that, but if it doesn't work out, maybe they try and bolster the cornerback position.
Oh, very possibly. Yes.
There's 2 other teams on my list too that I think could use them.
Who?
How about the Kansas City Chiefs?
Oh yeah, they're the last in defense,
and they're, like you said, you mentioned the last segment that it's a possible Super Bowl team, right?
Oh yeah.
So if they had Patrick Peterson, it's got to help their chances.
It boosts them even better. They might put them over the top.
Their defense has actually been playing a little bit better lately too.
Yeah,
they've been respectable.
In our fantasy football podcast, I put them as a sleeper for maybe you should pick them up because how well they're playing and the defenses they are and the offenses they are playing are not very good.
The first couple of games was rough for the Chiefs defense.
They did play some pretty good offensive teams, granted. But the fact of the matter is the Chiefs, the Saints, I would even put the Patriots up there too. Like
for Peterson?
Yeah.
I have one more.
Who?
Steelers. Their defense is their weakness. They need a corner.
Okay, let me ask you this, because we just talked about Le'Veon Bell. Trade Le'Veon Bell for Patrick Peterson.
No, because the Cardinals have David Johnson.
Yeah, but he's been struggling.
Not his fault, though. He's a dominant player. He's a great running back, and they're not trading for that expensive running back.
I kind of disagree with that a little bit.
So what do you do with David Johnson? You're going to have David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, so
why not? Yeah, well...
I think David Johnson in the
David Johnson's going on a decline, in my opinion. Like, I know his offensive line is. I know his offensive line is terrible, but the fact is he's had one solid season, like 1 or 2 solid seasons, and I haven't really seen much of him.
David Johnson,
yeah,
is a beast, like an absolute beast. And if you're telling me right now who I think will be the better running back in 2 years between David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, I'm taking David Johnson every single time. He's young. He's good.
You know, Le'Veon Bell is only 26, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm picking Le'Veon Bell in that situation.
And Le'Veon Bell has taken a massive amount of hits in his career. That's the problem. Even in college, he took a beating. And that's why he's trying to get paid now. Like, that's literally why.
So you're saying this is the end of his career?
I'm saying that David Johnson has proven to be a dominant running back in this league and has 500 carries in his career. Le'Veon Bell gets like 320 carries a season. The dude's taking a punishment. Better days are ahead for David Johnson. I don't think so for Le'Veon. We will see.
Le'Veon was potential NFL MVP the last couple of years.
Yeah, but you're not getting that guy. You're getting the next 3 years. Whoever trades for Le'Veon Bell has to give him a massive contract. We realize this, right?
Yes.
So you're going to be paying...
I just think he has a lot more left to give than you think he does.
Yeah, he has a couple years, but you're going to pay him like $80-something million. That's a hefty price tag.
Well, when David contract. Yes, his name is now David Contract. David Johnson's contract expires. He's going to ask for a big extension also. So regardless, you're going to have to pay somebody if you're the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Le'Veon Bell has just as big a future as you think David Johnson does.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. Running backs that take that many hits usually hit a wall. Plus, David Johnson just signed a 3-year, $39 million extension, so he's going to be tied up for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, but once that's up, if he does well, he's going to ask for a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We got to go.
Okay. Let us know if you think it's Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson. Let's see whose side you're on. But that's all the time for. Tune us in tomorrow. We'll talk more about
Thursday for football.
Yeah, we'll see a bunch more. Oh, Thursday for football.
Yeah, we'll preview the Thursday night football game and talk about the weekend matchups.
Yeah, and probably some more trades that'll happen since the deadline is coming up. So we will see you on Thursday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.